Hello everyone. Well, another week, another winter storm in the Midwest, and it's a winter storm that's going to be impacting everyone in the Midwest. But as is always the case, some are going to be impacted more than others. So we'll get to the rainfall totals and snowfall totals that we're currently forecasting in just a minute. But what I want to do first is just walk you through the work week and give you an idea of what we're expecting each day for the next 5 days, starting with today. And the big thing I want to emphasize is that overall, today is going to be the nicest weather day in the Midwest over the next 5 days, because for the vast majority, it's going to be a dry day, maybe some rain showers returning by the late afternoon around the St. Louis area. In most places, there's not going to be that much wind today, just a light breeze. And also look at the temperatures. Keep in mind that this time of year, many in the Midwest are still seeing high temperatures in the 30s. Instead, today we're talking about 40s, 50s, even some 60s. Look at 61 in Rapid City, 60 in Omaha, Kansas City, 63 in Dodge City. A little taste of spring even. So above normal temperatures in many locations, not record-breaking high temperatures, but warmer than usual for this time of year. So lots of good news today. But the news starts to change for tomorrow. Unfortunately, Valentine's Day looking pretty wet across the Midwest. But wet in the form of rain rather than snow for the vast majority, because the cold front for tomorrow is just going to be arriving in North Dakota, South Dakota, and northern Minnesota. So there you have a chance for a rain-snow mix, but for everywhere else, just going to be rain on Valentine's Day, but yeah, rain for many. And notice that for many, temperatures, yes, coming down, but not seeing the dramatic cool down yet, because again, the cold front is back in the Dakotas and Minnesota. So for most, the temperatures coming down just because there's going to be more clouds around tomorrow, there's going to be rain coming down, that always lowers temperatures. What we're seeing is an area of low pressure moving in ahead of the cold front to bring a round of rain. Then we're going to see a cold front move across the Midwest, and behind that cold front, an additional area of low pressure that's going to keep the precipitation chances going. All right, so this is Tuesday. Now let's jump ahead to Wednesday. And by Wednesday, the temperature's coming down in more locations. The cold front on the move to the south and east. And also look at the wild variation in temperatures across the Midwest on Wednesday. This is the day with the biggest variation. Look at that, 70 in Cincinnati, but just 10 in Fargo, North Dakota. Also, I've got to mention that Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are all looking pretty windy across the Midwest. I think those 3 days, a lot of folks in the Midwest seeing gusts 30, 35 miles per hour, but it does look like Wednesday is going to be the windiest day. That's why I've got these wind icons showing up, because I do think in some locations on Wednesday we can call it very windy with gusts 40, 45 miles per hour. And yes, snow starting to show up in more locations. Now, a lot of Wednesday, probably in the eastern part of the area, could very well be dry, or the rain may be beginning the late afternoon or Wednesday night. But I do think snow moving in during the day, northern Wisconsin, southern Minnesota, eastern Nebraska, down into Kansas. So we got to jump ahead now to Thursday, and even more cooling down, a place where we're going to have mild temperatures most eastern part of the area, parts of Indiana and Ohio. Look at that 51, 60, but even Chicago on Thursday, just a high of 35. And look at the 20s and teens showing up in many other locations. Now, Thursday looking like the snowiest day overall, I got to say, for a lot of locations in the Midwest. Now, it's probably mostly going to be in the morning hours around Omaha and Kansas City. We'll probably actually see the peak of the snow Wednesday night in that area. But then during the day on Thursday, I think the peak is going to be across eastern Iowa, southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, and on into Michigan. Finally, this brings us to Friday. And Friday is actually going to be a day kind of like today, where not much is going to be going on. Maybe some leftover snow showers in the morning hours around the Cleveland area, but for most, the frontal system moving out. And we're going to get dry weather, but I got to say, Friday not going to be as nice as today, because even though it's mostly going to be dry like today, it's not going to be warm like today. Look at these high temperatures in most places, a little bit below normal for this time of year. So Friday, not as nice as today. All right, so now let's talk about how much rain first. And there are really 4 zones I want to highlight across the Midwest. The smallest rainfall totals look to be in western Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, and northwestern Minnesota. In that area, we're talking about a half an inch at most, but probably less. Now, for a whole lot of folks in the Midwest, it looks like the most likely rainfall total is going to be a half an inch to up to an inch, somewhere in there. I do have to point out, though, it looks like rainfall totals are going to be a little bit smaller across central Illinois, northern Indiana, southern Michigan. But notice how they go right back up once we get into southern Missouri, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, and across Ohio. In fact, that's probably going to be the wettest area where we're expecting the most rain. We have the best chance of seeing those rainfall totals around an inch. And why are we expecting the most rain there? Because we're expecting thunderstorms in that zone. And unfortunately, I got to mention, on Wednesday night into Thursday, there is a small chance that we could see some severe storms in this area from southern Missouri across Ohio. Mostly just regular thunderstorms, but possibly for some severe storms as well. The rest of the Midwest, not concerned about severe storms at this time. All right, so this is the rain situation, but of course we got to talk about the snow as well. And as is always the case, the snowfall forecast, do have to say, is subject to change. It's ultimately going to depend on how quickly that cold front moves and the exact path that that area of low pressure behind the cold front is going to take. But this is where the snowfall forecast stands right now. When you look at all the models, this is the range they're giving us. And there's 2 areas I want to highlight as being in the having the bigger snow totals. First, eastern South Dakota, southeastern North Dakota, across northern Minnesota. That's one zone where we're talking about 2, 3, 4, 5 inches of snow being common. And then another zone stretching along the Kansas-Nebraska border across central and eastern Iowa and on up into southern Wisconsin. Another area where we're talking about 2, 3, 4, 5 inches of snow being common. Then notice how there's a lot less snow across central Illinois, central Missouri, central Indiana, across Ohio. Very little. We're talking about probably dusting in many locations in that area or missing out completely. And if you want the bullseyes of snow right now, we're expecting those highest totals, again, still subject to change, but right now it's looking like northern Minnesota, northwestern Michigan, and then also look in central and eastern Iowa. See those dark shades of blue, those 3 zones? That's where we're talking about 5 to 7 inches of snow as it stands right now. So the big takeaway here, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, active weather days across the Midwest. Lots of moving parts. We're talking rain, we're talking snow, we're talking wind, we're talking about falling temperatures. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 3 days where you should monitor the weather a little bit more closely than usual. Look for updates to the forecast at least twice a day to get the latest information.